You wouldn't know my dad's got Parkinson's anymore. His tremors have stopped. He can get dressed. He can cut up his food. We joke about him struggling with spaghetti. And over the past 3 years, he's continued to get better.
Every so often, you meet a founder whose story is so layered that you know one episode won't be enough. Footballer, florist, professional gambler, tax entrepreneur, and now founder of one of the most intriguing companies that I've come across this year. Luke Olley is building Resonance, a performance wear brand infusing minerals into fabric, and the transformation stories that people are reporting from his own father's Parkinson's experience to elite athletes are really hard to ignore. This is a brand new category, and this is just the start of the story. Trust me, there will be a part 2. Let's connect the dots. Welcome to this week's episode of Connecting the Dots. I'm here with Luke Olley, founder of Resonance. Now, I'll be honest, Luke is a bit of a mystery. There's no bio on LinkedIn, and on my Google search, I learned that there's a football past somewhere in there, and a company that's building something genuinely new in performance wear. So today we get to find out who he actually is and what led him here. Welcome, Luke.
Thanks for having me, Jennifer. Nice to see you.
Good to see you as well. So connect the dots for me and for our audience. Who are you? Who is Luke? And what led you to start Resonance?
Yeah, nice. It's funny, LinkedIn. I mean, someone said to me the other day, you need to put a bio up there.
You do.
I will get round to it. I'll get round to it. But do you know what it is? There's so many platforms. There's like Instagram. I think that I'm 33, so my age is a little bit more Instagram or that kind of
Audience.
social audience. But do you know what? Even with that, I probably had Instagram for about 10 years, but I've been a very private person and not someone that would really post things. I mean, there'd be a few photos on there, but obviously that's one of the things I've had to get comfortable with transitioning into is the world we live in, right? Technology is moving so fast. Social media is a thing. And I don't think you can have a business without having a social media presence, because that's obviously the new form of PR and all these kind of things. But yeah, who am I? So yeah, like I said, I'm 33 years of age. I come from London, South London. I've had quite an eventful life up until this point. Lots of failures, lots of successes. And as you said, I used to play football. So I actually left school when I was 14 and went into full-time football.
Wow.
Played for a team called Millwall. And then I signed for QPR when I was 15. I was there for a few years. And then I suffered a fractured pelvis when I was about 18.
Wow.
And I found it really difficult because my identity was in football. So everybody knew me that Luke that played football. I'd moved to another club, another part of London. And anyone that would ask me, I'm going to be a footballer. And I think having this injury, which was meant to be about 3 months, turned out being about a year. My mind, and I think especially back then, there wasn't much sort of mental kind of help, or I didn't really feel like I could talk to anyone about it. But my mind just found it really, really difficult to process what I was going through. And then really, to be honest, it probably took me 10 years to even understand that, to get to the bottom of these things. And it led me to going into all different areas in life, just filling the gaps with so many different things. So I stopped playing football about 19, 20. And then I actually worked in a florist for a little while, delivering flowers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd done 3 months there. I was doing a lot of partying and I was trying to just find my feet. And then I got into professional gambling. So, which was all horse racing based, something quite different. I'd done that for about 8 years and then that come to a close.
Okay, how do you, what is professional gambling? Because I am pretty sure that most of our audience has not heard or...
Yeah. Okay, so obviously there's so many different forms, but the form that I was involved in was all to do with horse racing. So it was horse racing based. And it was on a software that Betfair uses. So Betfair is a betting company. And you used to be able to bet during a race. So you could place bets and take bets during a race. And I had a bit of a knack for it. And after a couple of years, I've become quite successful with it. But I think the younger version of me, it was just how quickly could I party and drink and be here, there and everywhere. And it was just a vehicle. Yeah. It was a fast life. It was just a complete vehicle just for me to just have fun with, I guess, or think I was having fun anyway. So yeah, that was sort of 8 years. And then, lockdown came, which was a time when I think for the first time in my life, I was made to sit down and have a look at myself a little bit. And then in that period of lockdown, having to sit down, I found out I was having a daughter. Yeah. Coupled with my coupled then with my dad being diagnosed with Parkinson. So those three kind of things invoked a lot of change for me, I think. And well, no, I know. And yeah, and then that's kind of led me to resonance and led me to where I am today. So yeah.
It's a I love messy stories. Like I've been on a lot of podcasts, and I've had a lot of podcast guests, and I think it takes a whole lot of bravery to be able to kind of own and explain the messy bits, like the not so I wouldn't put this on a headline in a PR article. But that's the fabric that makes us who we are as
Yeah,
people. And
without a doubt.
yeah, and like your identity as an athlete, like as an athlete, if I just unpack that a little bit and kind of bridge to your founder, like you had to have so much structure and so much discipline to excel in athletics, as well as like being able to really communicate and understand the psychology of the team and where everybody fits, and being able to adapt on the pitch to really constantly be able to play the play, right? Like these are massive leadership skills. And then I think gambling is super interesting because it's risk. It's your ability to dare. And what I heard from you when you were talking about like I had a knack for it, what I hear, and I just want to check in if it's what you mean, is that you have a really strong connection with your intuition and you listen and it pays off. So that's what I heard when you said you did well in gambling, because I think
Yeah.
there is that nudge that we all have. Like this is the bet you want to take. But but you
Um,
somehow commercialized that for 8
yeah.
years.
I'd say so. No, so and when you say that, I mean, there's so many different versions of it, but what you said there is probably what has been the foundation for everything I'm doing now. Is if I look back and we're saying in reflection of everything I learned, so obviously being a sportsman, that area of discipline, and also being injured for a long time. I spent a long time in the physio room, so understanding the body, anatomy, other people's injuries has also added to me having a base understanding, um, moving into resonance and what resonance is doing. And then, yeah, for sure, moving into the professional gambling, I think it really taught me a skill of being able to handle stressful situations, for sure. How I deal with that stress when something's not going particularly right, but more importantly, the development of my intuition. So
Hmm.
back then, I would have not really put much light on it. But how I've become now, where I've changed a lot and gained a lot of understanding, resonance in itself is built on intuition. It's been built on following a path or following this thing inside of me that, again, yes, I built up over years. But I think having to accept from coming from South London, being a man's man or a boy's boy or an athlete, those kind of intuition nudges you probably don't accept or you stay away from. And I had to go through a transition to accept that's a part of my identity, and it's something that now, to be honest, really governs my life and my decision making.
I think it's a super powerful reflection. And again, like as I hear you tell your story, like from a very young age, you had to go through a big pivot. So if you think of like many people's, not most people's, but many people's life arc, right? Like they go to school, they start a career, they start a family. So like there's this kind of this waving process that you're following this path. You didn't follow that path, and you kind of got jolted into a shift process because of your injury. And then you were forced into a self-discovery process, including a stint at a florist, which, I mean, I think we all try things when we're in that shift process, right, to find the next thing. And I think what's super interesting is this illustration of the fact that there is no one thing that you do. You're going to do many things, and you've already done many things in your career. So from footballer to florist, an unexpected element, and then gambler, and now founder. So I and there'll be a next thing and a next thing, but
Yeah, and it's fascinating, and even because I missed it out, even after. So when we come out of lockdown, I actually opened a tax company. So I had two tax companies. So the total opposite to what professional gambling would have been. And I always remember I'd seen an opportunity, and I through gambling you don't pay tax. It's not. something you pay tax on. So, and I played football and I was on a contract for 3 years. So that was handled. So I actually knew nothing about tax. And an opportunity presented to myself when I was looking for something to do outside of gambling. And I sort of lent into it a little bit and I was like, right, I can probably work this out myself. And I always remember a point, I was speaking to my dad outside. I got a few things over the line. It was starting to come to fruition. I found the right people to help me build this up. And I said to Dad, I was like, I've really got no interest in this. I know I can make money and I know it's going to help people sort of reclaim tax and the scheme that it was in. So it's had that element of offering value to someone. But I always remember saying to Dad and myself that if I can do this, if I can make this work, this is the total opposite, least interesting thing I have, then I can pretty much, I reckon I could do anything. And it was a success for 2 years. We had 2 companies, one in Edinburgh, one in London. It was a huge success for the 18 months I had them open, but they actually stopped the tax scheme, research and development scheme I was working on. So that's why that came to a close maybe a year and a half after lockdown.
Wow. Well, I think you're a chameleon. You can just put on different skin and adapt. And I'm sure it's because you learned the skill of pivoting really early on and just mastered it. So we met at Beyond Active Madrid, and you introduced me. Actually, it was John Nasta introduced me to you, and then you introduced me to Resonance, which is your clothing line and the story behind it. So you mentioned really briefly your dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and what I understand from the story, maybe you can tell me a little bit more about it, was he went from being independent to being completely dependent really quickly. Like the Parkinson's accelerated quite quickly for him. And I guess you started looking for solutions to help him. So what happened next?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So like I said, it was lockdown. My daughter's been born. My dad's been diagnosed with Parkinson's. I'm going through huge amounts of change myself. And when my dad got diagnosed, he wasn't that bad. And I'd probably seen signs from him for 2 years. And I said to him for a little while, like, look, you've got some sort of problem here, Dad. You need to go to the hospital or doctors check out. And he did, and they never come back with anything. And it was only, they had him on like beta blockers and all different kinds of medications. And then it was, fast forward 2 years from that point, we're now in lockdown, and he went back again, and then they've diagnosed him with Parkinson's. And to be honest, the first few years, there wasn't, like, he was pretty steady. He didn't really decline massively, maybe a little bit. And I remember thinking how well he's handling it. And then I think it was, so at that point, I was always looking for things to help him. So I was always trying to understand his body, trying to understand Parkinson's. You don't really get a definitive answer of what the causation of it is and what the best next steps are. And then, just trying to understand where I can understand his illness, but also where I could potentially help. So it was trying things in that process, but it was about 3 years or 2.5 years after his diagnosis, where it felt like over a 6 weeks period, he really tanked badly. And I remember going around to his house, having dinner with him, and he can't cut up his food. And this is something that he was really struggling with. So his partner, Lisa, she's cutting up his food at the dinner table. And I know that was really difficult for him. And his leg was swinging and his tremors were pretty bad. And it was almost like a 6 weeks period. And then I'd speak to Lisa and was like, look, he's struggling to get dressed. I'm having to dress him. So give him a bit of time, because I was probably a little bit like, come on, Dad, let's get up and do something. And maybe a little trying to strong arm, like him pushing him a little bit further, but he was actually just struggling. So not being able to get dressed on his himself, barely being able to cut up his food. And he could only walk for like 10 minutes. And I remember we went away on a trip with a few of my friends. It was like a group of about 8 of us. And I dragged my dad along. He didn't want to come. I like I said, I was of the thought, I just want to get him out of the house. And when we was away, he could come down for dinner and that was it. Like, he just had to lie down and he couldn't really do anything. So when I'd got back, again, life was moving fast, but I was still trying to find anything for him. So like lotions, potions. I got interested in energy, so frequency machines I put him on, but there was nothing really that I could say was having a real strong, like, long-lasting difference.
Mm-hmm.
But this was an ongoing thing. So, and then what happened next was, so my daughter, it was 3.5 at this point. And like I said, I'd become very different, like a lot of breath work, meditations, probably following a more spiritual path and the many winding roads that takes you down. And I took my daughter to a conscious children's event in Mallorca.
Okay.
And at this place, it was called Star Seats Farm at the time. And they teach the children there to do breath work, to do meditations, like good sugars, bad sugars, and just a different way. It was like a concept of like a different way of education.
Mm-hmm.
So I took my daughter along, and I think there must have been about 10 or 15 kids there. And at this time, my daughter was a real super daddy's girl. So she wouldn't get involved in the exercises. And to be fair to her, she was the youngest kid there, but she wouldn't get involved in the exercise unless I'd done it with her. So I'm doing all these exercises and just getting along with the day. And it was quite a long day. And then the very last exercise of the day, there was a lady called Catherine who's become a dear friend of mine now. And she was talking to the children about being electromagnetic beings. But bearing in mind, this is kids from the age of 4 to maybe 10. So it's a very, very basic format, and that even I could understand. And I was really soaking it up. And then she started talking about some minerals and stones. And we was in a circle, and then she placed some stones in my hands. And I had become interested in crystals and stones at this point prior to this, but I could never really get anyone that was giving me some sort of definitive or palatable information that made sense to me. But Catherine put these stones in my hands, and just the bottom line is when I felt them, I could just feel something running through my body. And then she went on to do some kinesiology tests, and I was more balanced and I was stronger. And I think like some of the tests that I showed you, and we developed more tests, because from that point I was blown away. And I was like, right, this can't be real. I can't be feeling this more balanced from having some stones in my hand. So then I'm testing everyone. I come home with some stones. I'm testing this person, that person, and it's the same result with everybody. I give them to my dad and noticed he was moving around a little bit better. Not massively, but again, he was more balanced, and he had a little bit more capacity and strength. And somewhere in that point, I had an idea this could go into clothing. And to be honest, at that point, I didn't think, at that point, it was more, to be honest, in my head, it was more of a business idea that I thought would translate more into sports and performance, because I think if you're stronger and more balanced, you're going to be able to do X, Y, Z better. And the next year, I won't go into all of it, but the idea was to get into clothing. So I actually met a few people, managed to get someone in South Korea, someone introduced me to someone and someone else, and he had a quantum entanglement machine. So this machine draws their energy outside of the minerals and places it into the fabric. Something that I, at this time, had no clue what he's doing. He said he could do it, so I'm like, right, just do it. He sends over some samples back to me. I sent the minerals to him, broke down into a powder, come back. The samples are doing the same thing as the stones. So I'm like, right, this is working. I'm onto a winner here. Like this physical difference is happening. And then I at this point in my life, I had no money. I've been stripped of everything. I've lost my house. The tax company I was working on closed down. I was working on a private members club as well. I left that a bit out. That was not really working, and I was in a lot of debt, and I was in a lot of stress, and I had to move back to my mum's house. So I've basically got 1,000 pairs of socks and gloves, and I'm like, right, I just got to sell these on the street. I've got to do it. Like there's not much choice I've got. And so I rang the guy up in South Korea. I was like, look, I've pulled together some money just to get some more product. And he was like, I can't do it for you no more. Someone's bought the technology out. So I'm like, at this point, But at this point, I'll be honest, my relationship with God had been developed. So I just knew I was being redirected. I was like, right, okay, I'm not gonna lose my mind here. And then I got the phone. I must have rang about 200 people. Phone call after phone call, manufacturers, fabric developers all over the world. And most people just laughed me off the phone. And then I got put in touch with, through these phone calls, one lady. And as soon as I got on the phone to her, I just knew. It was just, we spoke on the phone for about 3 hours. And she was like, look, I'm up in Doncaster. Come and see me. So I drive up to Doncaster, and the next day.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
So you had the manufacturing sorted out from this quantum extraction company.
Yes,
and then
quantum entanglement machine. Which, by the way, that's a whole story for another day. It's incredible. And
okay, we've got a whole Luke series. Okay, so then quantum entanglement machine no longer possible. So you're like, okay, I'm back to square one, and square one is to find a
supply chain.
Process for a supply chain. So this is what gets you in touch with this woman in Doncaster.
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you. With you.
And to be honest, one thing I was in the process of all of this, I was uncomfortable with just being reliant on this quantum entanglement machine in South Korea with someone I spoke to a few times. So that was always in my mind. I need to develop something that's more in-house or
closer.
So closer to home. Anyway, so I drive up to Doncaster, and I meet this lady, Cassie, and she lives off grid. So she lives on the back of a gypsy campsite almost. And
I love this.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah. Right.
all
It's
of this.
yeah, and I already learned by this phase that I'm up for whatever it is. And sometimes in the places you wouldn't normally look, that's where the treasure is. And so she lives in this little hut. And I go and meet her. We're sitting down talking. She introduced me to her partner, Richard. And he's a fabulous, like an amazing guitar player. So he starts playing his guitar. And it's almost like sent me to another place. And what we found out, this whole room that this sort of hut that she has is also painted and in all of the minerals that she's been working with for 8 years. So there's this different feeling in this place, which I could feel. And I told her, obviously on the phone, the idea where I've come to what I've got. And she was like, look, I've been working on something similar, but if you add this to it, it's going to amplify what you're doing. So we then I start showing her some of the kinesiology tests, which she wasn't aware of. And then she showed me the amplified version. And I could feel more with this amplified version with what I've got. And again, she then said, look, I've got a doctor, scientist friend that I want you to come and meet. So we then go and meet him the following week. And yeah, and then that's Dr. Henry Brew, who's working on the project, who's our sort of material scientist and chemist that's come up and helped us develop this formulation. And the reason why I talk about the mixture and the addition is that once this was placed inside of the fabric, that's when I've seen miracles. Like miracles have started to happen. And like I'll fast forward to my dad now. You wouldn't know my dad's got Parkinson's anymore. His tremors have stopped. He can get dressed. He can cut up his food. We joke about him struggling with spaghetti. And over the past 3 years, he's continued to get better. And then I'm not sure, there's videos I think I've showed you, Jennifer, of the lady's hands with multiple sclerosis and carpal tunnel, which her hands are like this. She can't shut them. She places our glove on. And again, and gets full dexterity back. And that was my first experience with that. And then from there, it's just been this journey of discovery of all these different people with ailments and conditions and benefits.
So this, I mean, of course, when we connected at Beyond Active, this is a phenomenal story. And the reason that it resonated with me so deeply was because I also had this energetic healing experience 20 years before in Toronto with a chiropractor who put crystals on me when I had just gone through a very emotionally traumatic time. I had lost like 3 really close family members in short succession, and I was just holding all of that trauma. And when he went through this energetic, I don't know, cleansing for me, he allowed me to release that emotion. And that changed me, and I knew that something was happening that I couldn't explain. And as soon as you started doing the kinesiology tests, because he also did those on me as well, we used the same kind of approach to do my nutritional sensitivity testing. So I was familiar with those tests, and I know that like when you're holding something that your body doesn't react well to, your muscles are weaker. And if you're holding something that your body does react well to, then you're stronger. And and that's also what you're showing with the kinesiology test. I mean, what a journey.
Yeah.
And what a journey. And I think, you know, you had this clear question in your head that or this target in your head that you were looking for as soon as you started down that road of I'm going to put these minerals in clothing, which to me that's still a link. Like how did you connect that dot? That was vague for me.
It was, to be honest, I remember, and I laugh and joke about this because, again, we're all on a spiritual journey, whether we know it or not. And there's different versions of it and different sides of it and how far you lean into it. And again, it goes all the way back to, I think, being where I'm from. Having the upbringing I had was pretty unique. Having a father that was involved in business, earned it, lost it, and visually seeing that. And I think there's this thing of like being from sort of London or South London specifically, is that I don't know, we always joke about it. We're always looking for something, or like we're quite, there's hustlers there, if
You're
you will. Or we're trying to, we're always thinking like that. And I think that was my upbringing, was always, I'd always have a mind that was a little bit in that direction. But where I'd gone down this spiritual path, and I'd find myself in these spiritual places, I was very different. So I'd go there and first of all, openly, initially felt very, very uncomfortable going through these experiences I was having. But after a while, I'd say I adapted to them, and I probably lasted longer than most people from where I was from in those areas. Like most people would go in and then run away, but I was like, no, I want to understand. And I ended up in turn sitting with some incredible people, like masters in their field. They've been doing things for their whole life, or how they've developed these practices. And this whole journey was like the core of, I think, discovering this. And I think my mind had opened up a lot, and I've learned how to maybe receive and how to think a little bit differently. But having that South London sort of bit embedded in me allowed me to turn something spiritual into an idea rather than just leaving it as a spiritual thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got this base of entrepreneurial drive with a whole lot of curiosity and grit. I think this is what I hear. So, okay, you built the team, and then you develop the line. So, like,
Yeah, yeah.
what did that process look like?
So obviously this like so much in this whole period went on, and as you said, I think I would say there was just this once I touched this and had this idea, unlike anything else in my life, and it was obviously congruent in this sort of spiritual path I've took, and it was just that this is something that I had to do. There wasn't even like in like prayer and meditation, and like this is it. Like this is the thing that I'm here for and I'm here to do. And even accepting that was quite a strange thing, because sometimes it can seem like madness to other people that you're so invested in this thing, but you know you have to do it. We laugh and joke about it with the team we have now, like, and I don't know sometimes how it got here, because those kinesiology tests, sometimes they're difficult for people to receive. Obviously there's this people that are slightly more open, or some people will receive and be like, wow, I feel so much stronger. But obviously you get met with huge amounts of skepticism, which along the way I've been called everything. Like, you're a snake oil salesman, you're this, you're that. And I have developed a thicker skin, thank God for that. But yeah, it's how did it come from just with no funds, no money, from a sock that I used to go around testing people, to like where it is today? Like, I don't even actually know. Like, because
Do
we
you
get
have the
challenged.
sock? Do you still have the sock?
I don't have the original one. Nah, I don't. Someone's got it somewhere. But how did it go from that to this in a pretty quick time frame? I mean, like I said, I had the idea in March 2023. I didn't do nothing with it for a year because I was going through a lot of stuff myself. And it was only April 2024. I sat down in front of a computer and I was like, right, I need to do this. I need to get this out what's in me, and I need to go. And yeah, I think developing the team and the people, it's been like putting a jigsaw together.
Sure.
Different people at different times, and it has been, again, I go back to intuition. That I've definitely not got everything right, and you
Who
won't.
does?
But
Yeah.
I do think that I've made my decisions. My best decisions have been based on intuition, and sometimes the people that we've brought in haven't had the most experience, but they've bought into what it is I'm trying to do, or we're trying to do, and what that actually means. And yeah, I mean, building out a team. So Henry, obviously, that was very important. So he's a scientist and he's helped with the formulation. And this is a process where we ship in the minerals in their stone format. They get ground down into a very fine powder, which that gets turned into this liquid kind of ink, if you will, and then infused into the fabric. So we've now developed our own process that is ours. We've got a patent as processing now, and it's novel, and it's actually incredible how it works. How you can infuse this fabric, and then it's changing the physical elements of the fabric. So the amplitude inside of the fabric then changes. So essentially, there's more energy in the fabric, and that's been measured from an oscilloscope. It's something we're learning more about. We're still discovering more. And interestingly, a lot of these, I'm sure you've heard of, like, copper companies that have copper infusion and all these kind of things. They're normally stuck to a nylon and polyester because they do it through a master batch way, where they will sort of weld it down through plastic. But our infusion method, we can actually infuse linen, silk, cotton, wool, like any material, because it's this almost very, very light electrical technology that the minerals and the energy in the stones and the mixture in the fabric creates this amplitude, which is fascinating in itself.
Well, so I watched your video on your website, and that's Dr. Henry Brew, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's your chief science officer, and his specialization, from what I understand in the video, is figuring out how to get this infusion happening. So it's like a crazy specialization,
Yeah.
and I'll link to that video in our show notes. But the way that he described it, because I think you were interviewing him, the way that he described it that really made sense to me was that force that you feel when the polar sides of the magnets are reacting to each other. And that's the energy field that we don't know that we have. Like, we have this magnetic energy field, and then it reacts to this mineral that you're infusing in the fabric, and that's why people feel a difference. And the other thing that I learned, you can tell me if I'm missing anything, is because, our skin is our biggest organ. We have the most surface area to receive this input, and that's why it's such a powerful conductor.
Yeah, for sure. And also added to that, there's thousands of nerve endings all over our skin. And that's where the biggest interactions come in. And that's why we've learned, for example, the lady with her hand, when she put the glove on her good hand, it didn't affect her mobility in her hand that was been stiff for 2 years. But when she put it on there direct, that allowed for the movement. And this is like probably one of the coolest stories about resonance. And the actual scientific definition of resonance is when two or more materials, things come together, creating harmony. So when we infuse the fabric, those two materials coming together is creating resonance in itself. So the actual definition of resonance is the name.
It's also the word.
It's the word, right? Which
Yeah.
is crazy. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. So the name, where it come from. And this is one of these things that I've had to just accept it is what it is, right? And I can't change things. And I try sometimes to damp it down to not sound crazy. But when I go back to it, I'll never forget it. It was Father's Day 2023 on June the 18th. And I'm in bed with my daughter. And the only way I can describe it, because there's no other experience that I can put close to it, is as if I'm in bed with her, I'm asleep. All of a sudden, I'm up, like bolted upright. And it's like I've taken 20 grams of magic mushrooms. I'm in a different place.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm in a different place. And obviously I haven't, with my little girl in bed. And so it's June the 18th. And and interestingly, because I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I went back to look back. And this was the first time, the week before was the first fast I ever done. So I'd done a 5-day water fast in the week leading up to this. Obviously, I didn't know this was going to happen. But yeah, and that would give some context to these kind of things making more sense. And I'm in a different place. It's showing me stuff from my past, my future, all these kind of things. And it felt like it was going on for hours, and it probably didn't actually go on for that long. And I just, as well, recently learned how to do breath work. So this is something that, as this is going on, my body's just making me breathe. And the very ending of this thing that went on for some time was very cryptically, but also very clear at the same time, is you've had this idea, you've been designed for this, the world needs it for X, Y, Z reasons. Like, you know what to do, just do it. So this was about 3 months after I had the idea. And take with that what you will. Like, this is experience that I had, and it's not something I would talk about, but I've become comfortable with it because it is what it is.
Sure.
And the most interesting part about it, the most amazing part about it was, so I'd never heard of the Schumann resonance before. I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of resonance, what resonance mean. I've heard resonate, or I resonate with this. And you can check this out. So on that day, June the 18th, 2023, and how I know this, and then I've learned about the Schumann resonance, what it is. So the following day, I'm on TikTok. I'm doing some doom scrolling. I'm looking at TikTok. I'm watching some videos, as you do.
As we do. Yeah.
As we do. And some guy pops up. He was like, oh, the Schumann resonance has done this thing it's never done before. So I'm watching it, and it's this graph. And then it's a picture of this graph of what it normally is. And the Schumann resonance reads the Earth's vibration, or the Earth's frequency. And it's always in a certain level of sort of alignment, if you will. And then sometimes there's like white passages of energy that gets put in. And that will be as much as it does. But then he shows, look what it's done over this time period. And then in this time period, it's got all this DNA helixes coming through, like the frequencies like off the chart.
Crazy.
It's like, it's never done this before. And then I start researching it, and you could call them like hippy dippy people that are more spiritual. They're all talking about it like this is the Earth's receiving this and that. And then when I looked through it, I was having my experience through that time. So I know as night follows day, something happened that night that I received. I straight received it. And then I know the Schumann resonance is a real thing because of my experience in it. And so that's when I got the idea to call it resonance. And then if I fast forward to 2 years later, Henry sends me a message when we found the amplitude reading. He said, you'll never believe it. The exact scientific definition of what we've discovered here is resonance. So what you named it all that time ago is exactly what it is. Which, again, is another confirmation of.
You look, I mean, you can say hippy dippy, but I do think that anyone who is on any sort of spiritual awareness path, it's about self-trust and being able to recognize those universal breadcrumbs. If you want to assign it to a religion or not, I'm spiritual but agnostic, and I think that's that. And again, going back to that intuition, if you are humble enough to listen, you will hear your path, right? So I think, I mean, for me, this makes total sense, and I think it's so powerful that you have allowed yourself to listen and trust yourself forward, because look how far you've come. Because now, fast forward to July 6th,
Yeah.
2026. Like, when did Resonance launch as a company? When were
Yeah.
your products ready?
So we launched about 14 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so we launched 14 weeks ago, mid-March, early March.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's when we launched. So we initially there was very little funding, and then we went through a process and we managed to get some funding, which again is a whole journey in
Whole
itself.
journey. Yeah.
Because I was listening to my intuition again, and or the instructions that I was receiving was, don't ask people for investment. And I know a lot of people with a lot of money, and I'd go and see them and I'd show them the product and I'll be waiting for someone to say, but they were like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Well, nothing." And then what do you? So I would never ask, and I
That's
stuck to it.
counterintuitive. That's
Yeah,
counterintuitive.
yeah. So I'd never ask. I just kept going, and then a friend of mine, Barney, I sat down because my sister was doing something with him with property. We sat down and I showed him the test, and he was like, mind blown. And fast forward 6 months from there, we sat down again, and he was like, "Look," he's like, "I don't have a clue what this is. Like, this is like amazing. I just need to give you some money, like whatever it is. Just tell me. Tell me. I've got." He actually said, "I got 50." He said, "I got £50,000 out of a deal. Like, that's yours. Whatever percentage, whatever you want. You just, I don't care. I just know I need to give you this." And then from that was in January 25. And then in January, February, March, April, May, June, we raised again. And then that's when things really kicked off. And then in August, I started hiring people and bringing a team together, which sort of sped up the process to where we are now.
And
Yeah.
okay, so what I could tell from my desk research was your big launch was in FIBO this year. Is that accurate, or did you launch before that?
No, we was at FIBO. So we actually launched a one, because look, one of the things that we've said with this is that you have to experience it to really feel it and understand it. Online, you're gonna maybe feel skeptical, or you might find it difficult to receive. Like, there's flat out miracles that are happening every day. I don't know if you see the video that went up a few days ago. A lady with a frozen shoulder. She could only list to hear. She puts the sleeve on. Within 3 minutes, she's moving around. I mean, but we've got so many of these videos, hundreds of them. But yeah, online is difficult to receive. So we know that in person something different happens, something special happens. You can feel it. You'll meet the team and you feel how much sort of like love and intention and care they actually have to wanting to do something good. And so we actually launched with a pop-up store in London for 16 days, just off a street parallel to Oxford Street, where that's where we launched, and then our online launch shortly after that.
That's what a run. What a story. Like, I feel like you're ready for your next Netflix series almost.
We're
Or
ready. We're
yeah,
ready. We're
Netflix
ready.
bio. Okay, so like, can you say the minerals? Are the
Yes.
minerals proprietary, or is that something that you can share?
It's proprietary, and it's something that I've had probably battled with a little bit, because I don't really believe too much in like secrets. But I've got a lot more comfortable with it recently, because I think that I know what my intention is and what I believe this brand is going to do, and then
Sure.
what I can do with those resources. So, but for now, it's going to remain close to our chests, and because it does a lot more than even this is the thing. So what we're experiencing in clothing, and it's physical, it's tangible. You wear it, you can feel it, and we've got more science which we can talk about, which
Mhm.
proves that. And this is an important part of what we're doing. But outside of the clothing, there's a whole world with paint. There's a whole world with helping vegetation grow
Interiors.
quicker.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole resonance sort of world that we want
Ecosystem.
to create an ecosystem
Yeah.
which is for a better world. So yeah, there's things in the long and distant, or maybe not so distant pipeline. But obviously the fixation and the focus is now is we're seeing so many people's life change. How can we get this to a place where people can receive it? And also, how much can we get how quickly can we get science done that's ratifying and validating what we're already seeing across so many different conditions?
So that's actually one of my questions, of course, is like, this is a new category. Well, maybe it's not a new category, but it's a category that's coming into the mainstream, which of course is going to attract some skepticism. And I know, like, you've invested in a chief scientific officer. So what's been tested? What are you testing? Like, what have you
Yeah.
found?
Yeah. So Henry, being the chief of science, so his main thing was to focus on the formulation and then start getting a reading on the fabric. So that's happened. And then now the next part of that is let's read more fabrics across it, because also the other side of it, what it is, and an interesting thing when we talk about crystals and minerals and stones and this kind of thing, now we're getting a reading from a base. So we can now add different mixtures in and get a reading of the fabric. So what it's actually doing in the fabric, which has never really been done before, or a version that's never been done before, which I'm sure many people will actually be interested in what that is. So outside of the material science of measuring the fabric, which we've completed and is ongoing, is we done a triple blind study, an independent triple blind study in Slovenia. And this is around the physiological body. And the reason why we've done this was because obviously we see my father with Parkinson's, we're seeing people like myself having a physical benefit for performance. We had so many people saying, I wear your product, I just feel better, I feel calmer. We had experience with children and people with autism that have been so dysregulated, they wear our product and sleep in it, and within 2 days they're so much more settled, they're so much better in themselves. And we have people that struggle to sleep with insomnia, that they're putting our stuff on, they're getting a good night's sleep, which we spoke about before, you touched upon.
Mhm.
And then we're getting people with chronic fatigue that have no energy, that I put your clothing on, I feel like I'm so energized. Multiple sclerosis, like the list is endless. So we was like, how can it be helping somebody sleep, helping somebody feel calm, giving people energy? So the natural assumption that we made was that it has to be something to do with the nervous system. And that's why we went and got the study done in Slovenia, because it basically tests nervous system markers. So that being triple blind, so the testees don't know, the people taking the test don't know, and the analysts don't know nothing. So it was only 16 people. We're going into a larger study now, but we just wanted to ratify before we don't want to go down roads that we don't know are working. And so triple blind study, 16 people, and it was 16 cotton t-shirts for the control group and 16 cotton t-shirts that were infused with resonance. And so essentially this test, you're wired up and there's 320 measurements that happen, and it measures your heart rate, measures skin conductivity, your muscle contractions, respiration rate, and circulation in your body.
Mhm.
So there's a control measurement, there's a group that's exposed to 5G,
Mhm.
and then there's a group that's exposed to 5G and wearing resonance. And the results we got were profound, like amazing. And I'll just quickly run through it. So the first one was your heart rate. So when the control group wore resonance, there's a marker that we could see. When they was then exposed to 5G, the heart rate rose and as like a stress-related response. But when the
Mhm.
group that wore resonance was exposed to 5G, not only did it not rise, it actually lowered below the control group. So it's having this protective influence against 5G, but also putting your body in a better state than without it. And this is the same thing we saw with muscle contractions, the same thing we saw with skin circulation. And the Cohen's D scale, 3 of our markers come back huge. So large was 2 of them and 3 was huge. But the most interesting one, and this is the one that's give us most understanding and where we've spoken in length with the scientists that took the study, is the element called skin conductivity.
Mhm.
So skin conductivity is what they use in a lie detector machine. So there's your conscious mind. There's no cheat in it. There's no way of thinking about it or doing anything to change this. And what people normally see in skin conductivity is in a lie detector test, an anxious marker would shoot up and then come back down because someone's told a lie, or an anxious
Mhm.
response would be that. So when they got exposed to 5G, the marker shot up. So it's a stress-related response. But when they wore resonance, over 35 minutes, it tonically grew and then
Mhm.
held at like a Cohen's D of like 6 point something. So which is huge, off the charts. So
Mhm.
when we spoke in length with the people taking the study, they're saying every single marker you have, so your heart rate, your muscles relaxing, your respiration rate, your breathing becoming easier, and your circulation, they are all calming responses. So when they're wearing resonance, they're showing calm. And this one here is showing that your nervous system is primed. So your electrical circuit is now running at full potential, essentially. So when you look at that as a whole picture, when you see that every marker shows you're calm and relaxed, and then this steady growth of your circulation or your electrical circuit in your body is through, it's like your nervous system is primed and ready for action. So it's a place that we're doing a larger study with a larger control group. But this is why we're seeing people that are struggling to move are starting to move, because their electrical circuit is now functioning.
Firing.
That's why it's firing. So these nerve endings that may have become dormant for life wear and tear or neurological issues, they're now placing our product on, especially in an area, and they're regaining mobility. And when you put that science next to the results we're seeing, it starts to now make sense. And further studies we're going into. So with One Brain X, One Hype Wellness, so they've got an amazing sort of machine that reads the neurotransmitters in your brain. And we've done 6 people now, and we're going to go into a larger study, but it's showing the brain's more active and the brain's more congruent, which is quite a wide thing to say. But in our pilot studies, it's showing you can focus more. So that's another thing we're going to be looking into in the near future.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's so new, so science is going to catch up to the results that you're seeing. So I think it's really exciting that you're starting to look at it in a very structured scientific method.
Yeah.
So I'm like grabbing my popcorn and can't wait to see the continued results, because this is just, building in evolution. And as I told you before we started recording, I'm wearing my resonance arm sleeve that you gave me in Madrid. And the funny thing is, and this is just, the my personal experience from wearing it for a day. So I wore it yesterday almost from a dedicated standpoint, just to see if I noticed anything. And my own experience is when I put it on, I can feel a temperature difference. And it feels cooler. My arm feels cooler where I'm wearing the sleeve. I will say that I had an amazing training session yesterday. I went in quite tired, so I didn't expect a great training session. So that was a pleasant surprise. And the other pleasant surprise was how well I slept. So I mean, this could be complete placebo. There's no discipline in it, but just in terms of what I've noticed so far, there is something that I can feel. And I'm like, I work a whole lot on my awareness. So this is something that I'm tuning into. And that was something that I was just curious in the test that you ran in Slovenia. Did you ask the participants if they felt anything different? Like if
No,
they didn't.
we didn't. So we had nothing to do with that test. So we just left it to them. It's an institute.
Okay.
We left it totally to them, and they gave us back what they get. So it was, because that was also, I think that study was important for us. For me, because I've seen such profound effects, I wanted to make sure that it was safe. That was one huge thing. We'd been, people wearing it for years at this point, for a couple of years since we started it, and there's no reason to think it wasn't safe, but we just wanted to make sure that, this is something new. And so that was one thing. And also, we didn't want to have any input on the study. This is something they've been doing for 30 years. And we was like, right, you do what you do and just come back to us. We've got no hand on it. So, but this is a thing. So if we talk about studies, what we want to do, we have to do a sleep study. Like I always talk about, for us as a business, when we're with a team, like the lowest hanging fruit, carpal tunnel syndrome. I've met over 70 people now with carpal tunnel syndrome, and they put the glove on, and whether it's in a minute, a day, or a week, they're drastically better. And I'd say above 80%, and 9 times out of 10, it's gone. So there's 100 million people with carpal tunnel in the world. What does that mean? But there's so many different versions of formats, and I always go back to one that really touches my heart a lot. There's a young girl called Mia. She's actually from Australia, and she's got a condition called Rett syndrome, which I'd never heard of. It's not a huge thing that in the world people suffer with, but it's basically degenerative from 18 months old, and it affects mostly girls for some reason. And Mia's now, she's 21. She doesn't have much of her motor functions, and the most she'd ever done is 8 minutes assisted on a walking machine, and she's been wearing resonance for 6 weeks, and she's up to 14 minutes. I mean,
wow.
And this is degenerative. So this has turned something round. But like this, the question is, what happens if you have this on them from a young age? So there's not this degeneration. And again, like I see with my dad with Parkinson's, it's degenerative. And yes, there was an initial uplift with my dad, but the last 3 years, he's continued to get better. So what happens when people are diagnosed with Parkinson's and they get this straight away?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into so many different things, and we're working with a lot of physios, doctors, practitioners, and they're feeding back such amazing results. People that have had strokes, that they've worked with these physios for 4 years and maybe improved 10. Within 2 weeks of wearing resonance, they're like 30-40% better. So I mean, this is why, like, my mind just doesn't stop sometimes, and it's a real passion for me and the rest of the team, because we're seeing so many people's lives drastically improve in a way that is so profound that it's like we just want people to experience it.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's just like, you get to live aligned with your mission and purpose, and ultimately see the impact. Like that cycle
Wild.
is
It's
complete.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's emotional sometimes. Like we have,
Yeah.
sometimes we walk out of we're like, because we're mostly men. It's just how it's landed. It's mostly boys. Like we walk out of places, we just start crying right out. We come out of some places. It's just, there's a lot of
Great.
emotion in. There's a lot of emotion in it.
I
You
think
know?
that's beautiful. I mean, how
Yeah.
can there not be emotion when you're
Yeah.
changing people's lives, right? That's fantastic. So talk to me about, like, where you are now. Do you have any, like, really exciting partnerships that have launched? Are you looking for partnerships? Like, what does that look like if someone listening wants to work with you?
So one thing that, again, we obviously just coming on the subject to science. Like every day we get people that give us grief about, oh, where's this study, where that study. Like we've only just started, right? So,
Sure.
and we could have, there's a version where this could have got locked up and gone into clinical trials. Well, people wouldn't then be experiencing the benefits. So that's a trade-off instantly, was very easy for us to make. But we're in this place where I want to complete as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible, as much studies and science done as possible. So that would be something that we're is going to take up a lot of my time as one area of the business now. That's very, very important that we do that. And it's something that is a core foundation for us. But in terms of like collaborations outside of the science, one thing we always say is that I think there's this whole wellness space that's being built at the moment and has been for a little while, and this biohacking space, and there's this nutrition, and sometimes I feel that it's just like money spinners, and it's not always like actually wanting to make a benefit to somebody or help somebody. So like we want to really hold that intention, and that whoever we work with, it doesn't matter how big or how small, it's just the barrier to entry is that you genuinely want to do good and help. And it might take us a little bit longer with this way of doing things, but I think over a period of time it will be felt and seen.
Yeah. It's definitely a long game play. In the world of fitness, do you have any brands that are working with you? Any early adopters?
Not really at this point,
Okay.
and we're open to it. So an
Yeah.
exciting thing is happening at the moment. We're just finishing a deal off into the Middle East, so where that's going to get an injection and a team that's going to come in parallel with ours, and they're going to work with us and actually take resonance out to the Middle East. So
Hmm.
that's one exciting thing, and we want to, like I said, we want to grow as quickly as possible. And again, on this conversation, we've probably spoke more about the medical benefits, but when you talk about that science in general, that's for everybody, right? That's for an athlete, that's for your everyday person, and yes, it's for people with ailments. But when we're looking at sports and performance, there is this huge uplift and benefit which people are now just starting to grasp, and we're getting a lot of athletes reaching out to us and purchasing our products and wanting to work with us, probably more so than brands, is
Hmm.
athletes at this point across every tennis, rugby, football, golf, because they're purchasing the product and they're saying things, I feel better, but I'm performing better. And
Yeah.
then now it's like, how? So I think we're trying to tell that story. We want to tell that story through the athlete. So that's one thing. We're always open to working with athletes.
Yeah. And I think you've already got a handful of athletes working with you, like Oyson Murphy, and I'm gonna butcher this name. Is it Care Adenigan?
Yeah, Carrie Adenegan. So she's a Paralympian. So she wears our product. She's a medalist, and she says my recovery, my performance, my output's all up. Oisin Murphy, champion jockey. So essentially, he's number 1 in the UK, possibly the
So your
most well.
your horse racing link.
Yes,
There we
yes, the
go.
connect, the connect.
Yeah.
And Oisin's words is that, so Oisin's actually someone that ended up investing in a business, and because he's found the benefits so profound, he's like, I am 10 or 15% better when I'm in the saddle. He said, I feel more connected to the horse. I feel like I've got more strength there. I feel more focused. And that's just him, his feedback without any science done at this point. So he was right. And this is the thing, everybody that says these things, oh, I feel this, you're correct. That's what the science is pushing. Lyle Taylor he plays in lower leagues now, has had a decent career as a footballer, and he's just so immersed in the business now, and like he had a really bad Achilles tendonitis, and he wore the socks, not knowing anything about him. Someone said just try him, and the next day he was like, I just can't believe how much better I am. Boxers, interestingly, I think they're probably the most receptive to the product because it's like they want every advantage they can get. They're fighting, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of them that are wearing it that don't talk about it, and there's some that are talking about it, and yeah, they just the same thing. I just feel like I've got more energy. Like I'm at the end of camp when I'm normally exhausted. I feel fresh and brand new.
Secret weapon. I love it. And your website is also a web shop, and you ship worldwide, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
We ship on.
we'll add the link in the show notes as well. This is I'm so excited for you, and I'm so happy to have collected this very rich story that you have. Is there anyone that you want to shout out on your team or in your network that's doing great work, that's helping residents move forward? Who are they and what are they
Yeah,
doing?
I couldn't. Do you know what? I couldn't because there's so many. I'd list them all because like I said, this is, and I always say this. Obviously, people look at me because yes, I'm spearheading it, and yes, my journey's intertwined in this. But even outside of me, there's so many people's journeys that are intertwined. And do you know what? I feel like it is. I feel like it's my dreams. Catherine, Cassie, Henry, Joe, the team. It's like all of our dreams. It's almost like they've come together and they're now starting to come true. Like things that
You have a Venn diagram of dreams where the center is where they overlap, right?
this is it, and I feel it happening. I can see it happening, and it is truly magical. And that's one thing we film a lot of people, and we say describe resonance in one word, one sentence. And people that have experienced it for a minute or 3 months, and the most used word is magical. And yeah, but I mean, there's too many people. Like the whole team, like everyone has played a part in it in such a big way, and they're going to moving forward. I always
Continue.
do you know, and when you say that, just come into my head, so I'll say it. There's someone. His name's John Babawanyama, and I've been connected with him through social media. We've spoke a couple times, and he's got a children's orphanage in Tanzania with over 300 disabled children, and he's someone that I don't even know how I wound up on his videos a couple years ago, and really allowed me to sort of nestle into what I'm doing and trust in my intuition a little bit more. And he went over to Tanzania following his intuition with nothing, no experience. And he's now 10 years later built a children's home with 300 people like following his path. So that's someone who I've not met, who's been so impactful for me in my life. We've spoken a few times, and yeah, I just think I think we've all got this line we're meant to follow. And I think the quicker we can get to it is the quicker the world's going to be a better place. So
That's
yeah, shout out to Big John.
We got there. We got there. Thank you so much for sharing and being so courageously open about the not so neat parts about your journey, because I think that's the thing that everybody connects with, because we all have them. And you've turned them into your springboard to get to where you are now. It's been an honor to learn more about you.
No, thank you, Jennifer. And it's look, it's amazing. I mean, I've not done many of these things, so it's nice for me to talk, and you've queued me up really well, so I appreciate it. And it was
My
lovely
pleasure.
meeting you. And honestly, it was lovely meeting you, and we had a really nice few days in Madrid, and I look forward to catching up again.
Absolutely. This is just the beginning.
Amen, for sure.
Thanks for listening to Connecting the Dots. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, share it with someone who'd enjoy it too. You can find all of our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you follow the show, leave a rating. It helps more people discover our work. Until next time, keep connecting the dots and keep building the future you want to see.